Click the links, Discord, Gab, Coffee, BitChute, support the channel or Odysee. Okay, here's the thing. This is the power of militias. Now, militias, constitutionally protected activity. You got a lot of power when you form a religion or when you form a militia because you have a lot of constitutional protections that other organizations don't have. So that's why I use the word militia. You think of it as like a political action committee, but armed. You have power in groups that the individual doesn't have, and you got to be organized. You got to form organized groups. And the only way to form organized groups is do that. And I know whenever you start moving away from like anonymous internet speak, people get real spooky, no pun intended. But eventually you gotta form groups. Like even if it's just jogging groups or walking groups in your local area. Where I'm not talking about like some open carry event. No, that's off. That's something else. I'm talking about just going together to go walk, get a little exercise through the woods. The point is just to see people and talk to people and sniff people out, and don't fed post, don't advocate illegal activity. Everything is legal and constitutionally protected activity. Keep repeating that to people. Make sure you're all on the same page, and if there's a bad actor, get rid of the bad actors. Don't bury them in the woods. I mean, keep them out of the club. It's like there's power that a militia has that other groups just don't have. There's power that organizations have that the individual doesn't have. 10 people are much more than 10 times stronger than one person, and 50,000 people are pretty strong, especially when they're in a militia and they're not just a chess club. So I'm just throwing that out there. I mean, like, you got a situation like this where 8 months after January 6th, prosecutors made aggressive maneuvers as defendants attempt self-deletion and another is attacked in jail. So you get 60 people, I think, who are still locked up. And that's what I mean. I'm not talking about doing anything illegal and breaking down the jailhouse doors or anything like that. But you have power to lobby politicians for a redress of grievance, another First Amendment right, that you don't have as individuals writing letters. You have power. It's like 1,000-person militias. It's something to be obviously investigated by everybody that glows. But beyond that, I mean, keep it very professional and cool and calm and above board and legal. You have advocacy when you're advocating for your own interests. You have power that you just don't have just loose letter writing campaigns. It's like it's much more powerful when that 1,000-person militia. Here's you got the Northern California chapter. You got Southern California. There's actually a lot of red people in California, even in places like San Francisco and LA. Believe it or not, there are people in those parts of California that you think they're deeply blue who are as red as you could possibly imagine because they have to live around this crap. Where's it going? Oh, so when you got 100 people in one little geographic area, and then you just that's the chapter of the San Francisco chapter and LA's chapters, and then you've got, I'm just speaking for California because I know it better, in the Western Nevada region and all this kind of stuff. It's like, well, that 100 here, 100 there, and then next thing you know, there's 200, and it keeps growing and growing and growing, and you're the 1776 militia, whatever. And you say, hey, yeah, we got to get these guys out of prison, and 1,000 people say these guys shouldn't be locked up. You've got some power behind you. And when 10,000 people say it, you've got a lot more power. So some 60 people are still behind bars 8 months after the January 6th, where a bunch of peaceful protesters walked to the Capitol on a tour. They were let in. I'm saying there's things you can do in a group, but you got to eventually form those groups. And there's a lot more to talk about, but can't talk about it on YouTube. I'm not talking about anything illegal. I'm just talking about the YouTube has terms of services that are so ridiculous. But you can talk about it on Gab and Discord and stuff like that. To say, yeah, these guys shouldn't be in prison. Why are they in prison? You can put pressure on the prosecutors and your politicians to say, talk to your Congress people. And it's like Congress ignores you, and they ignore a 1,000-person group. But they're not going to ignore a 5,000 person group or a 10,000 person group who's forming a disciplined militia, especially a militia that's growing. They're not going to ignore that. So, I mean, the reason ADL SPLC are calling the shots in America is because they have an advocacy group that advocates for their own interests very zealously. And they have they have all the money at their disposal they could possibly want, because they've got Soros, Rothschilds, donations those type of big hitters are supporting them. So that's kind of an AstroTurf movement. The other side of the equation is you've got real grassroots militias, which I know there's some out there, but it's something to consider, forming local militias and not Fed posting. Keep it cool and clear. It's a constitutionally protected activity as long as you stay within those parameters. And you go, oh, well, what's the second step? What are you guys planning on doing? Well, Mr. FBI agent. Well, Mr. BuzzFeed. Nothing. The first step is the last step, forming the militias. Oh, but you're really planning. No, it's just forming the militias, just talking to people, just getting together and talk. And what it does is it sharpens your ideas. You're discussing your ideas with people, and I probably got some crazy far out ideas, and talking to people and go okay, most people are not on board talking about the chupacabra. What is it? The bunny rabbit with the things, hooves, horns. That's a little bit too far out for most people. So let's talk about what can we accomplish, and what are most people on board with, and what are people willing to donate for and go to bat for. And groups, organizations, militias, it allows you to collect money, set up websites, private servers, subscribe stars, retain counsel, have papers written, flesh out your ideas, and sharpen your ideas against each other. You come up with, that's what I was trying to say, is you come up with ideas, and then somebody who's on your side but is not a sycophant, they're rebutting your ideas and saying, listen, this is a better way to do it, and then someone else says, no, this is a better way, and you figure out the best path forward, and that can only be accomplished through groups of people. What I'm saying is, you got 60 people in jail who shouldn't be there, and if this is a left or right wing thing, the thing is, there have been left wingers who have protested and have trespassed, and they didn't get arrested, and they're not in jail for 6 months. This is insane, and this is to the point where something has to be done about it. And you don't just throw a parade, assembly. You have to. There's steps to take first, and I don't know the long-term strategy, but I know some of the short-term tactics are that first step is forming groups and talking to people, and a lot of that has to be face-to-face. You have to talk to people, go jogging with people, and not carrying anything, unarmed, just going for hikes and jogs and talking to people and fleshing people out, figuring out where they're coming from, and then see if there's any bad actors, getting rid of bad actors right off the bat. This is not a Fed posting group. It's we're talking about constitutionally protected activity, legal constitutional change. We want to see hey, we got a lot of people who are looking at the state the country's in. It's not good. If you've got kids and grandkids, you're looking at this and they're headed for dark days that I'm going to age out of. I won't see those dark days, but the kids and grandkids will. And so we have to do something right now. We can't simply pass this on to the next generation like people before us have been doing. And honestly, if you said stuff about forming militias even a couple years ago, it would not have gone over well. People would have looked at it and gone yeah, it's just not really necessary. Things are okay. Things are rapidly becoming un-okay. And you look at what the future holds, yeah, we're in deep trouble. So anyway, something like this, you get 60 people in prison, they shouldn't be in prison. The only way we can get them out legally is by putting pressure on politicians. They will absolutely, if you had people protesting for the J6 guys, every weekend at some area where a protest would be most effective, you're gonna get prosecutors and judges looking at this case. You're gonna get your politicians, Congress looking at this and going, okay, and if that 1,000 people every weekend turns into 1,200, and then you get the idea. You gotta have something you got to show people that you mean business. And numbers do that. Organizations do that. Like, okay, we're the 1776. There's got to be a cooler name than that. But you get we're the militia. You know, we're raising money for litigation. We're raising money for advocacy. We're getting together. We're talking. We're having coffee. We're getting some exercise. We're talking about what needs to be done, and we're taking power back from the government. How do I say this? And it's got to be beyond mere MAGA normies, where we figure out a dogma, and if a guy abandons that dogma, like Trump, like as soon as Trump got in office, like he took Kushner with him, and you look at his cabinet, you're like, okay, that should have been a really red flag. Like the Trump train, it should not have been some ideology or religion, almost like it seems with people. You should have looked at these things and go, hey guys, these are warning flags. Yes, they're warning flags. We're not going to defend Trump if we see some warning flags. You see his cabinet, like that's bad. And then you see the bump stock ban. You're like, whoa, that's a Second Amendment issue. That's not what we want to have happen. And you see he gives $500 million to BLM or the black community. You're like, well, there's poor Americans who also need a handout. You don't give $500 million just to black America. You give it to all poor America to help them out. That's insane. Or you get something like the ghost guns, I think, something like that. He goes, yeah, we're just going to come seize them, take them. And you go, well, that's a Fourth Amendment issue, search and seizure. That's a Fifth Amendment issue, due process. This is like you're not our guy anymore. Like the only way to get his attention and tell him that is, or whoever future politicians we have is you've got a militia that's got 10,000 people in it or more to say, yeah, this is what we believe in. We believe in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, specifically the ones that are important. First Amendment. We want the First Amendment applied to free speech, applied to the new town square. That's social media. If you don't have free speech on social media, then you don't have free speech. It's meaningless. Second Amendment. We need to bring that back, strengthen that across the board. It says keep and bear arms. That means you should be able to keep and bear arms and start dialing back the legislation. And ultimately it comes to a point where it goes, listen, if you want a nanny state, then we're going to have to set aside geographic regions where that's what you want. And it's like, well, that's 50 states. No. The difference is, and set borders and say, listen, this is your area. If you want to live in any state, we want to be able to keep and bear arms. We want to have free speech. And anywhere that has contacts with our jurisdiction, social media, it's like, yes, you have First Amendment protections for the new town square. That's the internet. We want, for a strong Fourth and Fifth and Sixth and Eighth Amendment. And ultimately, I guess, a 10th Amendment, too. Police powers. Anyway, this is important stuff, and eventually we're going to have, I'm not using the phrase, I'm trying not to use the phrase, I guess I won't use it as an example. We're going to have to take the first step. That's a non-Fed posting phrase. And that is forming groups, which I know scares the hell out of people who want to stay anonymous. Which means, yes, we have to get off our couch and actually go meet with people. And, I don't know exactly how. Like, I'm just coming up with ideas like walking and talking to people. I'm sure someone has already figured this out. And so, but until that person steps up, like, we're going to have to do these small things like make videos and get this thing rolling. Because these guys shouldn't be in prison. This is it cause for war? They've been in prison for a long time. This is not what we want. This is not the direction we want the country to go in. They should not be in prison. Anyway, not advocating anything. It's all constitutionally legal, protected activity, hypothetical questions of constitutional law. Like, comment, subscribe, support the channel if you have the means to do so on crypto, Subscribestar, CashApp, Coffee, PayPal, Patreon, or the best way is to drop links to drop this link to this video on, Gab or Discord or whatever. I'll see you guys all next episode.